to win by like 39 points, so it's not a big thing. We've been tested this month. Who received more phone calls than you wanted about the election? Nobody else.
Text messages.
You didn't get a phone call every day to vote for somebody? How did that happen?
They got cricket.
Wow. See, I'm not even a Republican, and the Republicans still had me on their list. I don't know how that happens. Who's been in business and it went wrong and it wasn't your fault? Who's been in business and it went wrong and it was your fault? Yeah, that's a rough thing too, isn't it? Have you ever watched your kids growing up and gone, who are these children? They aren't mine. Yeah. Have you ever gone, who's this spouse? They're not, no, don't raise your hand for that. We have things happen to us, and we go through things, and things occur, and we look at it and it's a train wreck. We look at it and we can't fix it, and we can't stop it, and we can't do anything about it except watch it happen. And the trains collide, and the people fall off, and the folks leave, and the money leaves, and the kid goes sideways, and there's all these horrible things that go on that we just can't fix. Exactly, I get that, Emma. And we look back at it, and we kind of do a questioning. We go, how did this happen? What went on? What occurred that this happened? There's an election, and we get the people we want elected or we don't. There's a game, and our team wins or they don't. There's a business, and we invest our life. My parents had a print shop. We poured our whole family into that place for a decade. They kept doing it while I was in college. I left and ran to Rebecca. But we just kept, you stay up late and you get up early and you give your vacation money to help the business, and you're excited when you get a new client and you're sad when you lose one, and it just keeps going, and you kind of put your life into that thing. I'm telling you. I saw an article on ESPN this week about Nick Saban as a high school athlete. And he was the same person he is now. He went over the plays till they were right. He helped everybody do what they were supposed to do. He poured his life into that event. He's still doing it 55 years later, and it's working. This Thanksgiving service, I sat there. God gave me a message literally 5 minutes ago. We're one of the smaller churches involved in this event. I came on. Those of you who have been around, we started doing the Thanksgiving service 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer now. And we would go, and we were the most dynamic church of the churches involved, just point blank. It was at the other churches because we never thought we were big enough to hold the whole crowd. And so we'd go to Covenant Baptist, and they have a very structured, staged service. If anybody raised their hand, the pastor's thinking they want to use the bathroom or something. And then we would go to New Hope, and they had a very structured, regimented service. And we would go to Redeemer, and we had all our confessions and everything to do. And we would go to All Saints at the start, and it was and we were the place that was a little bit more modern and had more young people. And I'd take kids to these services, and they'd be looking at me like, Pastor Joe, why'd you do this to me? And we would do that. But over time, the pastors changed and things happened. And last year we had some technical glitches, but we had a great time with a lot of churches worshiping together. But everybody else is gone, so they all look to me to kind of lead this thing. And I don't know what's going to happen tonight. That's why I'm asking you to bring food. We'll have fun together no matter what else goes on. There's supposed to be 8 churches involved, and I don't know who's going to show up. The cafeteria will hold us, I'm pretty sure. And we're going to have a time of prayer and some fellowship. So I haven't invested my life in this, but I've put a few hours, and I'm hoping it's going to work. But you never know, right? You never know if you're going to win the game. You never know if the business is going to work. You never know if the kid's going to grow up and not be a serial killer. You're just not sure about these things, right? Well, that's what God's looking at. That's what Israel's been looking at. We've gone through Jeremiah and we've gone through Ezekiel, and they're both just watching the train wreck come. They understand that the people haven't obeyed God. They haven't done what they're supposed to. They've pretended everything's fine, and they've had their parties, and they've done their festivals, and they've gone to church and done the things they're supposed to, but they haven't obeyed God. They've gone to church and been religious and dressed up nice and brought their lambs to be slaughtered for their sins, but their hearts haven't changed. And it's been generation after generation after generation. And God has let people come attack them, and they've prayed for mercy, and God has given them mercy. And God has let plague and famine come, and they've prayed for mercy, and God has given them mercy. And it's been up and down and up and down and up and down. And God finally says it's over. And these prophets at the end of Israel's history are just saying, you know, you caused this yourself. And they're looking at the train wreck and going, this is what happened. And not all of that applies to us. I don't know that your polyester clothes would be something God finds sinful anymore. I don't think we have to do those sacrifices or new moon festivals. Although I think going to church on Sunday really is something God kind of expects. But this chapter here, chapter 34, talking about shepherds and sheep. And I don't know, but you know, that first reading Patrick did, literally that's about me and David and Patrick and maybe the board members. It's about the leaders. It says that if you're put as a shepherd over someone, if you're the person in charge, of course that's also about parents. If you have someone that you're supposed to be leading to follow God, and you don't take care of them, that's on you. It says, if I don't preach the gospel, if I don't nurture your souls, if I don't ask you how things are with you and God, if I don't lead you closer to God, then that's not your fault, it's my fault. And he goes on to say, like he said in the passage last week, like the watchman, if the watchman doesn't warn them, it's the watchman's fault. This morning, Ezekiel is telling them for God, if the shepherds don't lead the flock and care for the flock, that's on the shepherd. And he talks about sheep that are lost. Boy, you could look at my Facebook page. Let's see, who could look at my Facebook page? Cassie and Jenny could look at my Facebook page and probably see 50 people that they've known here that aren't in church right now. I pray for those people. I don't think if you're not in another church that it's not my job anymore. I can't fix things, but I can let them know they're loved and God loves them. And I try to do that. Of course, some of you are parents. How you lead your kids is part of the testimony of your lives. Some of you are teachers, either in church or school or somewhere, and how you lead your people. Some of you are managers or bosses or supervisors, and how you lead your family, how you lead your class, how you lead your business. Those are things that you have to be accountable for. You're going, oh, but Pastor Joe, it's just a business. Last I checked, we were here on God's business and everything else is second. So you say, I only have one kid. We're down to one kid now, pretty much. How I care for Sarah and how I lead Sarah is something I'm accountable to God for. Sarah doesn't always like the way I lead her. I make mistakes leading her, but God's working in that. And I'm not the best pastor. I have no illusions. I'm really jealous this morning because my pastor's preaching at my church. Dan Boone, the president of Trevecca, who's still my pastor, is preaching at TCC, which used to be College Hill, this morning. And all my friends who go there are excited about it because we had great days with him pastoring. But as I heard that and look around this room, we've had some pretty great days here. We've had people come to Jesus. We've had people return to their faith. We've had people called into ministry. We've had people grow up and become adults and parents who cared for God and their kids. We've had good days. And I'm thankful for that. But I don't answer to you for my care. I answer to God. And yeah, there's a board and a structure, and I can be fired. And, y'all work at it hard enough, you can probably do that. But I also know that I answer to God for the way I lead. And that's that first section that Patrick was talking about. It's the section that says, if the shepherds aren't good, I, God, will do it myself. Got a little side note here. My wife's birthday was last week. We had dinner last week and then a meeting last week. And this week she was feeling better. So Sarah, she spent 10 hours yesterday doing stuff around the house. A lot of it in Sarah's room. You should see Sarah's room. It looks really cool now. But she's kind of like God there. If somebody at work doesn't do their job, she goes and makes sure the work gets done. If somebody at church doesn't do their job, she kind of makes sure the work gets done. And that's not functional, it's not the best way to do it, but it makes sure it happens. God says, if you're not going to lead your family, there's going to come a day when I'm the one who's going to lead. If you're not going to lead your business, there's going to come a day when I take over those souls. If you don't lead your church, there's going to come a day when I do that. And he says that day is coming, and we know now it did come because Jesus came. And Jesus is our shepherd. And Jesus is the one who cares for us. And Jesus has also made us all shepherds. I'm going to talk at the end of the service after our meeting today with some folks about being shepherded by Jesus. Jesus is the one in charge. And as those who follow Jesus, we're supposed to shepherd other people. You get that? I tried to let you off at the beginning. If you're not a business owner, if you're not a manager, if you're not an active parent, if you're not a leader or a teacher, guess what? You're still, Angel is supposed to be discipling people. Pam is supposed to be discipling people. Bill is supposed to be discipling people. You're supposed to be leading other people to follow Jesus. Right? Amen. So we're all shepherds. That's the nasty thing about the New Testament. There were roles, now we've got all of them. The other part, the part Patrick just read, is about the sheep. We're all sheep. Some of us have horns and we butt people too much. Some of us, our fur's kind of stinky. Some of us, we wander off and get dirty in the creek, right? But we're sheep, and all that we've talked about this winter that goes into that is part of that. But Jesus says you have to be good sheep. You don't push other sheep aside. You don't live for yourself, you live for the group. You follow your shepherd. And if you don't do that, in this passage that on Thanksgiving Sunday's kind of nasty, he says, I'm going to separate the sleek, fat, happy sheep from the poor, skinny, abandoned sheep. And I'm going to judge the flock with justice. And that's where we Americans probably have some problems. Because to the rest of the world, we're the sleek, happy sheep. We're the ones who have been given more than we had. We're the ones who have been treated better than we deserve. And people who are hardworking and honest and have integrity and are godly in other parts of the world have so much less than the laziest among us. Have so much less opportunity, have so much less possibilities, have so many less possessions than we do. And it's not that we're better, it's just that we were born here. Right? And I want to say, yeah, I'm one of those needy sheep, but in fact, as I'm reminded almost every week, I've been given more than I deserve. And more has been done for me than I have done. And just living here, I have more opportunity than people in most of the world. So we're the sheep. And we're the shepherds. And we're left to deal with that. So what does God say about the sheep? God says, don't get fat while other people starve. Well, tonight we're going to have a meal. We're supposed to bring food to eat and food for camp. Andy Stanley says you can't feed everybody, but you need to feed somebody. I think that's real. Next Friday, we're going to go to Operation Christmas Child and we're going to pack some boxes. If you hadn't done that, see me or BLA will get you hooked up. You can't help everybody, but you need to help somebody. Right? And in your neighborhood, you can't take all the kids in, but you can give one kid a snack because they look a little more hungry. And when you're at work, you can sit by the people nobody sits by because they might be alone. And if you've been given a lot, you need to work at giving back a lot. Because we're supposed to care for the flock. Not just pastors and leaders, but if you're following Jesus, you're supposed to act like Jesus. You don't have to care for everybody, and there might be people who drive you back crazy. I don't know, it might be me. You care for somebody besides me then. But you need to have somebody who's helping you follow Jesus, and you need to be helping somebody to follow Jesus. And God says there's going to be a day when He's going to judge, as Jesus says, between the sheep and the goats. Between the ones that are part of the flock and the ones that aren't. And you know, somebody next to you might be a goat who needs to become a sheep. Somebody you live beside might be someone who thinks life's all together, but they don't know Jesus. Somebody you work with might be mean and angry and a bully because they're hurt inside and nobody loves them with it. And so it's our job as the ones behind Him to care for those around us. I know you people. You love people without telling people about it. You care for folks without letting them know. You pray for people who never knew you were praying for them. And God honors that. But what the Word says is that's our job. And so if Jesus loves me, as Viola said this morning, if we have salvation, is that not enough? And none of us stop at salvation. We have places to stay and food to eat and clothes to wear and people who care about us. We have times to laugh and ways to get places. We have jobs and school and things that are important. And so we should be thankful for all of that. And that should help us to care for people who need help. Right? Amen. Shepherds are called to care. And sheep are called to follow. So if I am in fact a follower of Jesus, I'm called to follow Him. And I'm called to care for you. Raise your hand if there's somebody you talk with who helps you to follow Jesus better. That's pretty awesome. Raise your hand if you're intentionally trying to help someone else follow Jesus better. Wow. Do you know there are churches where people don't have conversations about following Jesus more than 10% of the church? So I'm absolutely grateful for your efforts to love God and to let God love you through other people. That's what we're about. We had a conversation, Patrick and I and a few hundred of our Facebook friends. about what happens after church gets out. Now, we're going to have a meeting after church gets out this morning, so that doesn't really work. But if you want to be really obsessive, you can think about it over the next 4 weeks. Carol and I remember a time when church would get out at 12 and everybody would be gone at 12:05. Because, to be honest, most of the people here were upset about one thing or another. Is that a fair way to say that? Not all of them were upset at me, I'll just say that. But you know, I have to push you people out some days at 12:50 when I've got somewhere to go. It's okay. Why? Because we've become family to each other, and we're friends to each other, and we share life. And it's not just about church. It's about, I want to know what happens in your life, and you want to know what happens in his life, and we want to be involved with each other. Now, over the next few weeks, few months, we're going to do some things. Sooner or later, we're going to plan a chili cook-off, because it's just a fun thing to do. We're going to play some games together and do some fun stuff, because part of what we do is to share life. Okay? Now I'm going to finish the service, and in a minute we're going to talk about some other stuff that the church does. Because part of what we do is to care for each other. But the fact is, we all have one shepherd. And we're all part of one family. And God is going to take care of all of us until that time when we're all together. Stand with me if you would. Dear Lord, we thank you for repeated awareness that we're sheep. That we follow the crowd too much sometimes, that we get lost on our own, that we don't care for ourselves, and we don't even do the things that are good for us. I praise you this week as we were talking in Sunday school about the things you're doing to help us to be more like you. And I ask God that as we work together, we would truly follow you until this flock is completely yours. Amen. One of those songs I love as I was going through my life is One Flock, One Shepherd. I'd invite you as you could to sing along with us this morning.
We are one.